Damn, that's good.
I've needed that since noon.
Damn, that is good. I've never had it before.
It's really good.
Yeah,
it's
is
very smooth.
Oh, that's good.
And it's a pain in the ass to try to find too.
Mm.
Yeah, a couple times a year it comes around, but like there was any more liquor stores around here, how they upcharge.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just crazy. I would never pay for what liquor stores sell it for. So I got lucky.
So just so our listeners know, we just sipped on some 1792 sweet wheat. Tell me a little bit about that, Matt, because I don't know much about this.
Yeah, well, I don't know.
It just tastes good.
Let me read the back.
Yeah, let me read the back. Here, yeah, edit all that stuff out. It's funny you asked, Sam. It's actually crafted with sweet and delicate wheat instead of the more traditional rye. This bourbon is quite distinctive from most, actually. Anything else you'd like to know?
That's great.
Well, it's funny. I just got back from a hunting trip in South Texas. I was there Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and was with a bunch of guys who were big bourbon guys. And we were driving around in the middle of nowhere, kind of in between hunts. And we just started stopping at every little shitty liquor store we could find.
Yeah.
And didn't find anything, but it was like, it's kind of a cool little hunting, like that kind of a hunting trip. Like, because you never know what you're gonna find in the most random places.
Right. Yeah. Hunting while you're hunting. We got a meeting next week and it's a ways away, and we were talking about doing the same thing.
Dude, yeah. You plotted out, you go to liquor stores. My father-in-law got a liter of Weller 12 in Litchfield, Kentucky. Paid retail price for it.
Yeah.
Think about that.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus. I was like, golly, you never know. You got to walk into them, man.
Yeah.
Shit.
Happy hunting.
Yeah. We were down in the Bahamas for spring break. I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. And of course we hit the liquor store on the way to the resort. And I walked in and I saw the most Blantons I have ever seen in my entire life.
Just a stack of them.
Oh, I mean, and like the Blantons that's got the gold top.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I don't know what to do here. I could buy all of this, but I have no way of getting it home. And if
you could take one bottle home, right? Is that what it is? Or two?
Yeah, but I mean,
one per person. You stuff it in all your kids' suitcases.
Right? Yeah, no, that's her. That's her.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's his wife.
Right.
Yeah. Never seen this juice before.
Why
with
is
a
this
horse.
bourbon in the Mickey Mouse suitcase?
Yeah, I don't judge.
Well, thanks again for coming on, man. We really appreciate it.
Sure.
So let me ask you a question. How did you get started in corporate real estate and kind of, your path and to where you ended up with Zaxby's?
So I went to school at University of Kentucky, and I mean, just like most college kids or most high school kids back then, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I knew I was terrible at math, but really had no clue. And so I had worked for a landscaper all through high school, like most high school kids do. And my parents were like, "Well, why don't you go into landscape architecture?" I'm like, that sounds kind of cool. Not understanding that I was about to get into the hardest 5-year program that UK has to offer.
Yeah.
And so I got in and didn't do very well. But what I figured out I was better at the business part of it than I was the design. And actually in the midway through my 4th year, the dean of the department actually told me that I should probably go find something else to do. And I'm like, man, I've been here for almost 4 years. And
you waited till now.
I'm like, yeah, right. I'm like, dad isn't paying for 7 years of college. So I stuck it out, and I got a job with a landscape architecture firm down in Atlanta. And just, it took a year for me to really figure out that that's not what I wanted to do. But just like everything, like that job led to the next job, which was, doing site plans for Home Depot and Target anchored shopping centers. And that was with a consulting firm that also did development consulting for Target, Whole Foods, Home Depot. And so I quickly rose through the ranks, and within 3 years, I was basically running Home Depot's Southeastern development pipeline. And so that really got me hooked.
I remember when Home Depot, this is a true story, had restaurants in it, Fuddruckers.
Really?
Yeah. They were open 24 hours a day, and they had a Fuddruckers in it. True story.
Really?
Yep, in Atlanta. Yeah, they weren't even public yet. That's when I was down in Atlanta.
That was probably back before Walmart was doing McDonald's.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
It was. Yeah. God, I'm showing my age. Shit.
It's okay. I just miss the hot dogs there. They don't do that enough.
No, they don't.
But yeah, so that got me the commercial real estate bug, and really liked retail. Of course, I was doing like the biggest retail deals at the greatest period of time
Right.
for big box development.
Mhm.
And so at the time I was with that firm for, gosh, from 2001 to 2008. And at that point in time, my wife, who's from Louisville, we had talked about moving back up here when we wanted to start a family. And it just so happened that, we made that decision at, I don't know, 2:00 in the morning in Nashville on New Year's after going to the
Yeah.
Music City Bowl. And so it was like, wow, this is a great time to make a life altering decision. So I decided that I was going to get my resume and get my shit together. And I honestly, I had a job in 30 days up
Wow.
here with Faulkner Real Estate. And of course, that was in February of 2008,
Yeah.
which was an awesome time to go into private development. And
only up from there.
right. I
Yeah.
couldn't have gotten any worse.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they hired me as a director of development. And over 4 years there, I pretty much did everything but development, just based on the climate of the times. But it taught me a lot about the business. And so, but I had always wanted to get back into retail. I loved retail and corporate development. Some people love it, some people hate it. I love it.
Yeah. What'd you love about it?
I love being able to build something and, take a pipeline from ideas and inception all the way through vertical construction and generating sales. It's one thing to do deals, but it's another to basically be the inside guy that makes sure the deals get done and actually gets to reap the benefits of that corporate growth. So from there, I took a job as national real estate manager with PPG Paints. At the time, they were Porter Paints, and basically ran, I don't know, 75% of their development pipeline.
Mhm.
Wow.
I did deals from Seattle to Portland, Maine, and I had the entire Caribbean too.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a bad gig. I was in Puerto Rico once a month, and and talk about a learning experience.
Mhm.
I had to renegotiate 15 leases in Puerto Rico, and one of them was with the landlord was the CEO of Telemundo Puerto Rico.
Oh wow.
And it was an interesting negotiation. I basically had to I had to make some veiled threats of us just up and leaving, just to get him to even call me back.
Yeah.
And then even to start a negotiation, I had to submit an insulting lowball offer on a renewal, and he was pissed.
Yeah.
And
Got his attention that way.
when he invites you into his office and his head of security is standing next to him, armed, and I'm there.
He's got cigars all everywhere. He's crazy. That guy. Yeah.
I mean, it was like something out of like Narcos.
Absolutely.
And so we got the deal done. And I learned how to do a lot of things. I learned how not to do a couple things, but yeah, so that was a cool experience. And then, wasn't looking to go anywhere. And I was lured away by the parent company of Liquor Barn.
Okay.
And they were out of Western Canada. And it was one of those things where I was, and that was 2015. So I was my late 30s. And I'm like, sweet. I love the brand. They hired me as a senior VP of real estate over all of North America. And being that they were based in Canada, they had 300 liquor stores up there versus the 22 they had here.
Jeez.
Wow.
And so it was highly educational for a multitude of reasons.
Yeah. Did you gain anything from like the Home Depot big box stuff that helped? Yeah.
Yeah. And that's really what they liked about me.
Yeah.
What they didn't like about me was when I told them that they couldn't realize their development trajectory because of all the idiosyncrasies to liquor retailing. And so that didn't work out. But as my dad told me, everybody should get fired once. So talk about not liking some advice, right?
Yeah.
And so you know, I was able to bounce back from that and landed with Qdoba and Jack in the Box and was there for 5 years, running their real estate for basically half the country.
Yeah.
And wasn't really looking to go anywhere. Jack in the Box spun off Qdoba, and I was one of 2 real estate managers handling everything for that brand. And I mean that was a 2,200 unit brand. And you know, something that happened during my time there, which was probably one of the biggest achievements of my career, was obviously, you know, COVID hit, and I had to lead a team of talk about cross-functional. I had to train architects on how to negotiate rent reductions, because we had 1,900 leases that we had to either get rent reductions on or rent deferrals on.
I was just going to say that's a lot of leases.
Yeah.
And we had to do it in like 90 days.
Oh my gosh.
And so
how do you, like, when you talk about numbers like that, like, you know, thousands, over 1,000, I mean, how do you keep your thumb on the pulse of all of those things? Like, what's the secret sauce to that?
A big ass spreadsheet and working 8 days a week. No, it was just constant coordination. We did for almost 120 days, we did nothing else than that. And we ended up renegotiating probably 77%, and we saved the company over $15.5 million.
Wow.
And it was all predicated on savings over a 90 to 120 day period, paid back over 90 days.
Yeah.
So it was a savings over a period of time that was basically a break even in the long term, but it got us and our franchisees through a period of time that we thought was going to be really, really hard. We ended up doing really well. We didn't really need those savings, but you know, at the time it was we were trying to put out the fires.
So let me ask you this: doing big box and then going into these small QSR fast casual environments, you know, did that correlate with you? Was that just a big transition? Because I mean, big box, I mean, you're looking major square footages, either, you know, shopping centers. Now you're into like small environments, in cabs.
Leases.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that had to be, I mean, I guess from your standpoint, what was easier for you, or what was probably the most difficult for you?
So I think the biggest advantage that I had going from big box to small freestanding was just, you know, you look at everything for a larger big box development. Yeah. Everything's bigger, everything's harder, everything takes longer, and everything's more expensive. Right. And so when it comes to lease negotiation, you know, probably some of the most arduous lease negotiation I've ever undertaken. Permitting. Yeah. I mean, you know, when we're trying to do a deal down in West Palm, and at the time we had people at our zoning hearings basically picketing, you know, comparing Home Depot to Osama bin Laden. And it's like, it was just a little bit of a harsh, you know, hostile
comparison.
Yeah. So, you know, you learned how municipalities worked. You learned how permitting worked. And you were doing it kind of under the harshest conditions possible. To, you know, fast forward to today, it's like, all right, well, we've got to get this, you know, hard corner permitted for, you know, a use that it's already
with Zaxby's.
Right. Yeah. A use that it's already approved for, but we just have to go through the general approvals process. Yeah. And it's like, oh, we need a conditional use permit. That's easy, you know, but, you know, having that bigger picture, really hardcore experience in the beginning really set the stage for okay, like you learn all the workarounds. Yeah. You learn, you know, if you're not getting the answer you want from the planner, you know, you go 1 or 2 steps above the planner, and you know, you learn how to circumvent the problems to get to the solution that you need.
Interesting.
So let me ask you this: if I wanted to, this is a how-to business show. So we have folks that are just want to know if they want to get into franchising. Okay. And obviously they need, you know, there's a step-by-step, but from your experience, you know, what is the advantage of being a franchisee versus being an independent? And do you recommend folks that if they want to get into, especially the QSR, the fast casual space, being a franchise, or do they think it's better off doing kind of their own thing? What's your thoughts?
You know, I think it lies wherever your passion is. Right. You know, I look at our franchisees and I look at who the successful franchisees are and who the unsuccessful franchisees are, or the not as successful. You know, you've got to have a heart for hard work. And I think that that transcends whether it's franchise or independent.
Okay.
You know, with it, if you want to get into the restaurant space, obviously, you know, working with a franchisor gives you a lot of advantage because you have a lot of resources at your disposal through the franchisor that you don't necessarily have through an independent that you know, make up
Right.
Your own brand.
right,
Yeah,
yourself
I
on the
got you.
back of a napkin.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, we have, as I've told you guys, we have a national broker and developer network that from the time that a franchisee signs on to develop, that network is at their disposal. We have an analytics platform that for $1,100 a year, any franchisee can purchase a license for and run their own sales forecast, do their own market optimization, and really track all their own deals. That's something that the independent may not need because they're only going to maybe open 1-2 restaurants, maybe.
Right.
But you know, it's just that added level of, you know, of infrastructure that we can offer them that they don't have to house within their group.
The thing with a lot of times with franchisees is it's the upfront cost.
Yeah.
For that. I mean, are there programs for people that want to get into franchisees to kind of get in? I mean, because we,
Oh yeah.
yeah, okay. What kind of programs would you think do you know of, or you?
I
Would think?
mean, you know, from a financing standpoint, there are finance arms out there that specialize in franchisee lending. Obviously, the SBA program is one of those. They don't specialize, but that's clearly falls within their purview. You know, it's right today, money's very cheap.
Right.
I don't know how long it's going to stay that cheap, but you know, we can just to give you guys an example. Our typical development is around $2 million,
Right.
and that's basic. That's inclusive of real estate to a certain degree. If we did a build to suit, if the company took down the property either in ground lease or in fee, we could do a build to suit back to a franchisee, and basically they'd be looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of $150,000 to $170,000 a year in rent. The only out-of-pocket expense they would have would be to purchase our FF&E, and that they can get a loan for that with 20% down.
Yeah.
So they're walking into a brand new restaurant for $80,000.
Wow.
Wow. That's great.
And our franchise fees are $35,000 per restaurant.
Right.
Half paid up front, half paid when the restaurant opens.
That's
so
outstanding.
you know, you're talking about, you know, under $125,000 investment in cash to open a restaurant with AUVs in the mid twos.
Wow.
See, as an independent, you can't do that.
No.
You know what I mean?
You're reinventing yourself.
You're
for 5
reinventing
years.
yourself, and you're spending $500,000 just to even get to that, even close to something like that.
Yeah. And you've got the operational support from the franchisor. I mean, we have, I think of all of our franchisees, you know, we have some franchisees who have restaurants, 20 restaurants and above. Our largest group has 38 units, and they're growing, and they're going to, by acquisition, they'll have 50 very likely by the end of this year. But our average operator has, I think, 5. We have a handful that have 1, but you know, they're right around in that 5 to 7 range.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we've got a lot of franchisees. We've got 912 restaurants, but you know, we're and of those 912, only 146 are corporate. So 85% of the restaurants out there are operated by franchisees, and the vast majority are the smaller guys.
Yeah. So what's like your value proposition that when you go out to market and you want to add operators into a market you need to grow into? I know you guys have some aggressive, you know, growth goals, you know, like what does that communication look like?
So it's funny that you bring up the value proposition. We are actually in the middle of some strategic planning where we're completely revamping our franchise value proposition. It's that term, and what that term means was never something that was contemplated by the company. The company's been around for 31 years.
Yeah.
And for 30 years, it was run by the two founders. And in that 30 years, the franchise community was built off of their families, their friends, their insurance agents, their lenders.
Right.
And so, they never really had to have that.
Yeah.
We until this year, we've never had a franchise marketing budget because we never had to really market to bring in new franchisees.
Yeah.
So the face of how we go about recruitment and that value proposition is completely changing. I mean, it will be night and day difference this time next year.
Yeah.
With third-party delivery, and this is a question I wanted to ask you. I wanted to ask you the other day, and I forgot to ask you, but with third-party delivery and with kind of these, I don't want to say ghost kitchens because Zaxby's is not a ghost kitchen, but
Yeah.
not, yeah, absolutely. Are you is locate, and it's always been location, right? Are you guys looking at even, I guess, monetizing some locations that you might not have picked before because you got a third-party radius around it? Like, for example, like it doesn't meet this, this traffic count criteria, right? But it's in this radius and we can get delivery around there.
Yeah.
Do you guys look at more toward that? Do you look at more when you're looking?
Today we're not.
Okay.
But, and that's only because third-party delivery is a very small percentage of our business.
Okay.
I can see that happening in the future. The goal that internally we're striving for over the next 12 months is somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 to 20% third-party delivery.
Okay.
So right now we're in single digits.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it doesn't make sense to put so many of your eggs in that basket
Yeah.
when looking at locations. But I could absolutely see that happening.
Okay.
And ghost kitchens is something that we're looking at currently.
Oh, really?
At least to roll out in a couple of very strategic markets just to test.
Yeah. And I know ghost kitchens is kind of two sides to that coin. There are brands that are looking to do ghost kitchens under their own brand, but I know there are brands that rent out kitchen space for other brands to have their own ghost kitchen. So
Yeah, I was actually just reading about Guy Fieri I think he's got like 300 restaurants like across different brands.
Yeah.
And his ghost kitchens, half of them are in the back of house at Buca de Beppo.
Yeah.
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 And that's not one of his brands. And he just pays them rent.
Yeah.
And I'm still trying to wrap my head around how all that works. Like, I don't understand how you can make food for multiple brands out of the same kitchen with the same employees. Like,
In the same
it's so counterintuitive to me.
Right. Yeah.
And you gotta have the right ingredients, right?
Yeah.
Because if not, you got to bring special ingredients in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's why burgers and chicken, you always see them on Ghost Kitchen.
Yeah.
It's just burgers, chicken. Then they got pasta now.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah. It's a Five Guys, Wendy's, and a McDonald's or something. There's Big Macs everywhere.
Right.
The guy who started Super Chefs, he started in the back of a restaurant. It was a dinner restaurant and he was a breakfast restaurant. So
Yeah.
when they were closed in the morning,
That makes sense.
yeah.
Yeah.
And he's famous now. He's made national news. Just this dude who makes breakfast food.
Yeah. Yeah. Same with isn't that Beast Burger, Mr. Beast Burger or something? It's a similar
It's
story.
yeah.
Yeah.
I can't remember. It's not beast. It's like
Mr. Beast?
Killer Burger.
Oh, I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's burgers are going to be like chicken.
Yeah,
I mean,
we pulled up a DoorDash app. Have we figured it out? there might be right across the street at the Mexican restaurant.
Dude, now those are popping up everywhere.
Mexican restaurant.
I mean,
Yeah.
seriously, think
Yeah.
about if you look at the restaurant landscape, I mean, we're seeing more. If you step back and you don't realize it, you're seeing more Mexican restaurants
Hmm.
in urban areas than we've ever seen before.
Hmm.
And we've seen it. We've had a lot of them. But
Yeah.
think about it.
Yeah.
And my question is this: how does a Mexican restaurant have like 30 restaurants in one area and make it just doesn't make sense how they can make? Is there that much demand for Mexican restaurants?
Low cost of goods.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
I
what I was
get
gonna say,
that. Yeah, but I mean,
it's refried beans and chicken and
no, I get
tortillas and
that,
cheese.
right? But I
Yeah.
mean, they're staffed, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, obviously,
I just think, and I noticed that. So I didn't eat Mexican food until I moved to Atlanta and met my wife.
all right.
My parents, we had the most boring menu growing up ever. But living in Atlanta,
Yeah.
I mean, I just, when I started eating Mexican food, I couldn't believe how many Mexican restaurants there were.
Yeah.
But I also couldn't believe how every single person I knew loved Mexican food.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's consistent today.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the fast casual concepts. You know,
Yeah.
Chipotle,
Moe's.
Qdoba, Moe's. I love me some Moe's, man. You know,
Yeah.
but we think about when we get into franchising in that space, right? We get into restaurants.
Yeah.
I mean, when's enough going to be enough?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, when supply exceeds demand.
Well, I mean, we saw with COVID, we kind of lost, we got rid of the low hanging fruit is what I
Yeah.
call it, right?
Yeah.
As people fell off, Zaxby,
120,000 restaurants in what,
Yeah.
2 years?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Think about it.
Approximately.
And, we look at a brand like Zaxby's. You guys are picking back up growth, right?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously,
Mhm.
but Zaxby's has always been a Southeast brand. It's just, it was born and bred in the Southeast,
Yeah.
and now it's expanding more Midwest, Central. I think that's where we're going. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you see Zaxby's being in all 50 states?
Man, that's a stretch. I don't know because, we oddly enough, we have a national marketing campaign. So people in California, when they're watching March Madness or the Super Bowl or, the college football playoff, they saw our ads.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I thought that
They
was
have no
regional.
idea who the hell we are, but,
I thought that was regional. That was
Yeah,
no, but it's
national.
national.
The guy on the chicken, the
Yeah,
cowboy
the guy on a buffalo wing.
Yeah.
We're not going to talk about that. Yeah. So could we go to California? Yeah. But the problem is California and New York
Mhm.
are just, they're 10,000 pound gorillas.
Yeah.
And
You think from a regulation standpoint?
no, I just think from a size standpoint. And if you can't just go with 20 restaurants,
Mhm.
you've got to go with 200.
Mm.
And our analytics tell us that, we could do 500 in California,
Wow.
and which is crazy considering we only have 900.
Mhm.
And I still don't know how accurate that 500 number is, but
Yeah.
you've got to make that jump so strategically with the right partners
Yeah.
that can deliver over the long term,
Mhm.
because and we did it when we entered Texas.
Mhm.
We entered the Dallas and Houston markets with the wrong franchisees,
Mhm.
and we had 4 restaurants in Dallas, so we're
Mhm.
basically not there.
Yeah.
In Houston we only have 8,
Mm.
and so we're basically not there. And
Yeah.
Houston's the number 4, number 5
Yeah, it's
MSA
huge.
in the country.
It's like
Yeah.
New York City flat.
Yeah.
It's just crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, do I see a time when we could be coast to coast? Maybe. I think that, we're just, I love our culture. I
Mhm.
love the brand. And that's why I was when the opportunity came about, it was a no brainer for me.
Mhm.
And, you don't always get to work for a brand that you actually like the brand, like the food, like the culture. It was almost like, all right, if I would have picked something to go do, it would have been this, and I get to go do it.
Wow. That's good.
But that doesn't always translate everywhere.
Yeah.
We're looking at growing into the Philadelphia market in the next probably 18 months.
There you go.
And I see the western suburbs of Philadelphia being a great litmus test for how we might translate into the Northeast.
Mm.
And so if we can be successful up in that area, yeah, maybe we grow. We're not going to grow into New York City, even though I get, I don't know, half a dozen site submittals in
Yeah.
Manhattan every day.
Wow.
And
It'd be, if you guys went to New York City, you'd have to put it somewhere like in Times Square where it's touristy.
well, and there are opportunities like that out there, but we've also, from a brand standpoint, we've never thought that far outside the box.
Yeah.
I mean, if I brought design and construction 1,000 square foot spot right on Times Square, they'd have no idea what to do with it. And I don't blame them.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be something that it would be a one-off design from scratch. Like it would be something like we've never done.
Yeah.
And we might get there. I
Mhm.
want to get there, but there's just so much low hanging fruit right now.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got of the 900 and change, we've got probably, I think 700, 750 are in the Southeast.
Yeah.
We have 200 alone in Atlanta
Wow.
and the surrounding area.
Yeah.
I mean,
Geez, 200 in the Atlanta area.
Yeah.
God. You guys own that market.
mhm.
You and Chick-fil-A, I guess. I said the bad word there.
No,
Sorry.
but no,
we can edit that part out.
We can
It's
edit
cool.
that part
no,
out.
it's so funny because a girl that I used to work with at Qdoba is now she's on the real estate team at Chick, and we hadn't talked in forever, and so she messaged me over LinkedIn the other day. She's like, "Hey, I know we're supposed to be mortal enemies, but can we catch up sometime?" And I'm like, "Lindsay, we're not mortal enemies. Like we've got." And I didn't tell her this, but some of our highest grossing restaurants are across the street from Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, thank you.
Because they're such a huge traffic driver.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, it's honestly like we're not following Chick around from corner to corner,
Right.
Mhm.
but if Chick-fil-A goes on a hard corner and there's an adjacent corner available, I'm probably going to look at it.
Yeah.
Like really hard.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Especially if the drive-through lane is looks like it's like 30, 40
Right.
minutes or something like
now,
that.
thanks to them, they've probably doubled the price of whatever I'm looking at, but that's a whole different story.
No, but that's true though. You think about it in the restaurant space, they always said that, competition brings more for both parties,
Oh, yeah.
it just
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
And I mean, Chick-fil-A, even though, their drive-through is, we got to admit, their drive-through model is insanely,
I mean, it's the definition of efficiency.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's a good way of putting it.
That
Right?
that and Portillo's.
Yeah. Well, Portillo's is good. I ain't gonna lie. But at the end of the day, we're talking about drive-through. So if you put for example, as Zaxby's going into there, when you're next to a Chick-fil-A, do you guys do the double drive-through there?
We are going forward.
Okay. Yeah. See.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
We're doing that everywhere, but we have to.
Yeah.
There.
Yeah.
What's the average drive-through time at a Zaxby's? I know that's probably a bad question to ask
Today.
What do we want it to
We
be?
can edit all this shit out, just so you know.
I honestly, I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay.
It's probably, I think we're probably somewhere minute and a half window time.
It's not bad.
Chick is doing it in like 45 seconds.
Mm,
Jesus.
It's insane.
yeah.
Yeah, but your menu's bigger than Chick-fil-A's.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Think about that.
Yeah. And so it's not necessarily an apples and apples comparison. And our operational structure is totally different. Our management structure is totally different. Pretty much everything about the two brands is totally different other than the chicken.
Yeah.
And so it's, they're kind of the gold standard when it comes to operations and people development,
Mhm.
but you kind of can't compare them to the rest of the bunch because they're doing it their own way, which is phenomenal.
Yeah.
But we have one franchisee who used to be with Chick,
Yeah.
and he crushes it.
Mm.
And so, I'm like, hey, find us more former Chick-fil-A operators.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Jeez. It makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Their training is great. I'm not gonna lie to you. It
Yeah.
really is.
Yeah.
We have a saying in our work, because we're business brokers and we're real estate guys. We just stay away from McDonald's. We never go to McDonald's. We stay away. We never call them. We never Coke. We don't even mess. Chick-fil-A is another one. We don't mess with it. It's
Yeah.
like their own little cult. We
Well,
don't
it's
mess
like
with
their own little universe.
It is.
It is.
Yeah.
We don't even. Yeah.
So one thing that you had mentioned, when you're talking about market analytics, California, 500 locations. Can you elaborate on how you guys analyze markets, data points that you make a priority, stuff like that?
Yeah. We first and foremost, we look at where we are and where we're not. We look at where the competition is and where, most importantly, the competition, Raising Cane's,
Yeah.
where they're not yet.
Mhm.
And that's a whole different story because they're 100% corporate development.
Yeah.
But we rely on our analytics probably more than we ever have because our analytics have never been better. So we've built over the past 6 months, we built a brand new analytics sales projection and a market optimization model
Okay.
built off of our existing customer data. So
Okay.
the company that we're using, they can geofence a customer to know whether they're in the restaurant or in the drive-through,
Wow.
all by cell phone data,
Mm.
which is scary as shit.
Yeah.
But good for us. But
Yeah.
every time I'm in a drive through with my kids, I look on my phone. I want to
You
turn
turn
it
your
off.
location services off.
That's why I turn the whole phone off. Just leave it at home.
Yeah, you're just smashing your phone in
right.
the parking lots.
Well, certainly every time I go to the Chick-fil-A drive-thru, I leave the phone at home. But
That geofencing's been around a little bit now. That's not too new, I guess. But
It's
people
not.
aren't using it right.
Well, that's
You know?
yeah, that's the thing. You're right. The technology isn't new, but whether or not people are using it and if they understand how they can use it is probably a new thing, especially in the restaurant industry. Restaurant industry historically has been kind of a laggard as far as technology is concerned. You know,
Yeah.
call for what you will.
True story.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
what does Zaxby use as far as like technology, and you guys use anything else that nobody else uses, or?
no, we actually we have just started using technology.
Okay.
And I'm saying it jokingly, but I'm serious.
Right.
You know, when I came on board in November of 2020, I asked for, you know, one of the first 3 things I asked for was a development pipeline. And, you know, I love our team. And the lady who was the only remaining team member in the development department said, all right, well, I'm gonna have to pull that from about a dozen different spreadsheets. And at that point in time, I realized that Houston, we may have a problem.
Yeah.
and so, but you know, I was able to turn that problem into an opportunity. But you know, we used Buxton for 6 years.
Okay.
And they're fine. You know, I found that program to be extremely conservative.
Okay.
What I didn't realize was that our marketing department was also using Buxton. And so I'm like, whoa. And I just found that out like 90 days ago when we didn't have Buxton anymore. And marketing called me and said, what the hell are we doing? Like, we need X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, oh, well, I think I've found out a lot of the marketing problems, but no,
Left hand meet right hand.
Exactly. Yeah. So we've just implemented our updated analytics model. We still don't have a project management CRM.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
It was, but you know, we were able to get to 900 restaurants over 30 years without that.
Yeah, because the brand was always enough.
Right. So I look at it as, holy shit, if we have this, can you imagine what we can do?
Yeah.
So we're in the final phases of implementing a CRM. And we've never had a chief technology officer.
Well, Zaxby's has got great food. Let's be real. I mean, for what it is, I mean, that salad is the best salad I could ever have.
Salads are fantastic.
Dude, I love that thing.
So I think they rolled out 4 years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
And ever since they haven't dropped out of the top 5 in terms of our menu popularity.
Guarantee it.
Because I mean, think about it. Like a family can go, you know, that the kids are going to eat like crap, and they can, but the parents can eat healthier.
Yeah.
And being that you can get the salads either grilled or fried, it's great.
It has. I mean, and I hope that Zaxby's never changes their menu, because I think that's really what sets it, you know?
Yeah. So we might tweak it here and there, but I mean, there is a lot of basis of the brand that's built around the menu.
Yeah.
So it's great. I mean,
you know, your logo's got a chicken on it.
I mean, we start changing the menu too much, we're gonna have a big problem.
Yeah, you have to add a cow on there and a pig.
How about do a lasagna roll? What? So one of the things I want to talk to, we talk about franchising, right? And so what are some of the landmines that you see? And I know that you've been doing this a long time, so you've seen a lot of franchise owners over the years and being what you do. What are some of the landmines you could tell somebody to avoid when, you know, looking to open a franchise that you could think of?
You know, simply put, you know your limitations.
Okay.
You know, we've got in our organization, we have certain financial guardrails that we look for anyone to even be a franchisee, regardless of how many restaurants they want to develop. But you know, we have new franchisees that come on board that say have, you know, $1.5 million in liquidity.
Right.
That would get them with us. That would get them a 4-unit development agreement.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We have franchisees that have 40 million in liquidity that aren't as good of an operator as that smaller guy, but they think they would be because, you know, they've got this huge infrastructure, or, you know, they built a real estate empire, and they've got, you know, boatloads of real estate that they'd love to plug a Zaxby's on, or whatever. On the flip side, you know that as a franchisee, you've got to be ready for hard work.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, especially nowadays with labor being the way that it is.
Yeah.
We have franchisees that every day are, you know, just lamenting about, hey, I'm working in my restaurants for the first time in 20 years.
Yeah, I was going to ask how many of your franchisees are actually under the roof, you know?
So it's funny because back in, I think, October, we were trying to get a deal done with a franchisee in the Greenville market. And, you know, we pitched him this great site, and he's like, hey, I can't do it. Like I'm working in my restaurants. I can't imagine having to hire more people.
Mm-hmm.
The labor crisis is killing me.
Yeah.
And so the next week I'm down in Jacksonville meeting with our franchisee down there. And I was like, hey, Ron, how's the labor crisis, you know, affecting you? He's like, I don't have a labor crisis.
Mm.
And so we talked about it, and, you know, this franchisee in Jacksonville has been able to build an organization tailored around operational excellence.
Mm.
And we have other franchise. We have a franchisee in Raleigh who has the highest performing restaurants in the entire system.
Wow.
He's an older guy. He's probably one of the best people in life that I have ever met.
Mm-hmm.
But he walks into his restaurant, and he knows, you know, he looks and see who the chicken cook is that day.
Mm-hmm.
And he knows exactly how many kids that person has and what their names are and probably what their birthdays are. And that's him across his entire organization.
Yeah.
And that chicken cook very likely has about 3 weeks paid vacation and is on a bonus structure. And so he doesn't have a labor crisis, but, you know, the QSR segment in general,
mm-hmm.
I think, has kind of rested on its laurels from an operations and labor standpoint for a long time. And now that you've got this changing face of employment kind of across the board,
yeah,
you know, you can't just bank on the fact that somebody has to work, so they're going to take your job.
Yeah.
And I don't understand it, and I'm probably not meant to understand it.
No, well, you're right. The traditional model of QSR, it's just not working, right? But the ones that have adapted, right? Like you said, you know, it's not just the environment and treating your employee, but if they feel vested into the business,
yeah,
they're not going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
You know, you think about that. If he is giving him a bonus structure, right? He's, you know, when you walk, I don't want to say names, but you walk into some of these QSRs, it's hourly wages, you know, you get out, you're done. And they're like, they're crap, you know, it's just turnover. It's attrition after attrition, you know?
Well, it's a different mindset. It's paying people for what, you know, they think they're worth versus paying them for as little as you possibly can.
Yeah, but I mean, look, I believe this. I believe people, you know, money is monetary, right? But people have to enjoy what they're doing. They have to feel a part of something, right? Mm-hmm. You know, if a bonus structure makes them feel part of it, or they feel a part of a team, feel a part of an environment,
mm-hmm.
you know, they might make a little less. They could probably go over next door and get a job making $10,000 more. But if they feel like they're a part of something, they're not going to go over there, right? I think we can agree with that. And I think in the QSR, they've dropped that ball dramatically. And it's been that way, you know, as a kids, we grew up, man, you know, where your first job's at McDonald's or Burger King, you know, you're working the grease, you're working the fry pit, or you know what I mean? It's horrible. Let's just be real. Let's call it out what it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you know what, these guys, they work for these certain types of GMs, right? Yeah. And they're like, this GM is, and you always wonder why, how's that GM been there for 20 years and the staff's been there for 15, 20 years? How are these guys getting by working at a QSR? You know,
yeah, you're saying they feel part of something,
right? That's exactly right.
Well, and I think too, you know, I drove by McDonald's, I can't remember where, and there was a banner out front that said something to the degree of like $100 interview bonus.
Yeah,
it's like, all right, you know, if I'm looking for a job, and am I going to go interview at McDonald's where they're literally paying anybody who walks in the door $100 just to interview? That tells you something about the culture of what you'd be walking into.
Absolutely. Like that sign that says, get paid every day.
Yeah.
You know what I
That's
mean?
that's a McDonald's sign.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I saw one in the Wendy's too. I was like,
Yeah.
I'm calling these brands and I'm going to get in trouble, but that's okay. But seriously, you get paid the next day or get paid every day.
Yeah.
When you're just asking for somebody to walk off the street and work and just leave.
We'll invite their heads of development on here to defend themselves.
Yeah,
Well,
but
so
yeah.
it's funny. I was at Retail Live in Charlotte last week.
Okay.
And I had lunch at a table, and I was sitting next to the North Carolina and South Carolina real estate manager for McDonald's.
Okay.
And so I said, "Hey man, like what are y'all doing for development?"
Yeah.
He said, "Well, I'm doing a lot. We're going to open, probably 100 more locations in North Carolina and South Carolina this year."
Mhm.
I'm like, where
Are you going to put them? They're
where are you
already
gonna
everywhere.
go?
Yeah.
And who are you going to hire?
Yeah.
And their model from a real estate standpoint is actually very, very efficient and very, very beneficial from a site selection standpoint.
Mhm.
But I'm just like, okay, like, all right, whatever.
It's crazy. Yeah. And those systems aren't cheap to get into either. And they're very
No.
selective.
Very,
Yeah.
very.
That's their roadmap, that many in North Carolina on top of what they already have.
So North Carolina and South Carolina, they were, and I'm sorry, let me walk that back. He said 150 to 200 nationwide, a ton of which in the Southeast and the Carolinas.
Yeah.
But I'm
Well-
like, I just, where are you going to go?
Yeah. I mean, their store count growth is probably closely tied to population growth, right? So like Nashville or Charlotte's a big growing market, right? And so it's probably closely tied to.
And they're probably looking at a lot of urban models and, but, we're, so we're looking at we're actually under construction with our first drive-through only prototype
I was going to ask you
in down in Birmingham. And that question came up and he unequivocally said, "No, we will never go to drive-through only." I'm like, "Really?" Like, okay. I was very surprised.
Yeah. But I guess the other question is the market analytics, do they make sense of that though?
I mean, you look at
I don't know.
Zaxby's though. I mean, Zaxby's doesn't remind you of that though, right? You go into Zaxby's, it's got the red barn looking,
People would think of it, it's like the golden arches.
right. I mean, I see Zaxby's.
McDowell's.
Yeah, McDonald's, yeah, yeah. Zach's buys.
No, but I mean, I see Zaxby's honestly. I mean, in a rural market, I think they do extremely well. Probably like they're almost like there with some of the
Oh,
Walmarts. Yeah.
so when I joined the brand, I took a look at all of our portfolio and I wanted to understand, what worked and what didn't.
Mhm.
And I saw a bunch of restaurants that at face value,
Yeah.
like first off, I never would have approved. Secondly, I never would have even thought to go into that market, and they crush.
Hmm.
And it's because in a rural market, our brand serves as like the nice family meal out
Mhm.
2 to 3 times a week.
Hmm.
And so I get that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, and we still have, I get site submittals probably every month for markets down in Mississippi. And Mississippi, we absolutely dominate the chicken market.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, we do. And
Wow.
it's funny every time we're on real estate committee and a site in Mississippi comes up, our CFO, I love him. His response is, "Yep, Mississippi loves chicken," and it's true. We do really well.
Yeah. That's good.
So and it's one of those things too. Like, we've been really successful with some, potentially not so great real estate.
Right.
Yeah.
We're trying to change that model.
What are your guardrails around growth and oversaturation, right? And so, like, if you're getting all these things for Mississippi, I mean, at what point do you say, yeah, this works, this doesn't work?
I mean, honestly, we can, if we're outside of 5 to 7 miles from the nearest restaurant, we're not going to cannibalize, depending on population.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all dependent on that.
Yeah.
We're nowhere near saturation outside of probably Atlanta, Birmingham. Really, Atlanta and Birmingham are probably the closest to that saturation point.
Yeah. So like let's talk like bigger picture, right? So,
Yeah.
you're talking about Zaxby's, restaurant industry, franchising, you being a part of the industry. Are there brands out there that you kind of keep an eye on that you're just like, I'm like, oh, like those guys, they're doing it right. That's pretty cool. I would have never thought to do that.
Yeah. There are a couple from a franchising standpoint that I'm really interested to watch how they grow. Slim Chickens is one.
Yeah.
They just hit. I can't remember exactly what the hot list was, but they were in some hot list on QSR magazine. They've signed a ton of development agreements very strategically last year. I don't know.
Yeah.
I look at smaller brands a lot. I look at Torchy's Tacos and what they're doing. They've got a new leadership team in place. GJ Hart from Texas Roadhouse was their CEO, just stepped away from that late last year, but is still involved, I believe. I think depending on the market, the boutique QSRs are really doing a lot of cool things.
Yeah.
They're the ones that are able to kind of look into kind of niche opportunities and cater one-off ideas to their customers. It's tough for a 900 unit chain to kind of take a leap and do something different for their customers, because we have to do it at such a big scale.
Right. Yeah. It's an oil tanker moving in a certain direction. It's a lot to turn it.
Right.
In our world, full service, those the buffets, those kind of guys, I mean, they're almost becoming dinosaurs. And I hate to say that. It's hard to see some of these full service prints coming out. I mean, I tell you a group that's growing. It's called Walk-Ons. I'm sure you're familiar with Walk-Ons.
Yeah.
They're one of the very few in the full service spectrum that is even growing.
Yeah.
Do you see a transition where we're just strictly all fast casual QSR and then fine dining? I mean, do you think we'll get
to I think there's always going to be that middle ground.
There has to be, right?
Walk-Ons is a cool concept. They are a sports bar themed restaurant, but they still do 75% food. Yeah. So they don't consider themselves a sports bar,
right?
Which allows them to really cater to families and that kind of thing. And I only know that because for some reason, I remembered what the guy in Charlotte said last week, but
still fresh on the top.
Yeah. But they, they're doing a lot of deals.
They're coming to Louisville. Yeah. I mean, I talk with them all the time.
Well, and we have
with them.
And we have a Walk-Ons franchisee out of I think they're in Shreveport, and because I know they're based down there. I think they're based in Baton Rouge.
Yep.
And they're interested in being a Zaxby's franchisee.
Oh, that's
so
great.
We're talking to them about East Texas right now.
Oh, that'd be great.
But yeah, I mean, I think there's always going to be that middle ground between fine dining and QSR, or we don't really even consider ourselves QSR. We consider ourselves quick casual because we've got, and that's a term that our founder, Zach, really kind of ingrained in the brand, because we're quick, but you can still come in and sit down with your family and have dinner and not feel like, you're under the gun, like you are at McDonald's to get in and get out.
Yeah.
And like you want to sit down, you want to, have that family dinner that you would have at home, but you're going to have it at Zaxby's or something.
I like that quick casual. And I've been in this a long time. I never heard of that.
I never have either.
Yeah. And I think, and it's fun. And so I've never asked Zach about it, but I'm curious to know what his mentality was around quick casual versus fast casual, because I think there's a mental something between saying fast and saying quick.
Yeah.
Because fast, I think infers like a reduced quality.
Yeah.
Quick is just, you get great quality, but you get it fast.
Yeah. Or you get it quick and stay here as long as you want type.
Right.
Thing.
It's kind of like the John Wooden saying, hurry, but don't rush.
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. I like that. I'll just learn something. That's pretty cool. Quick casual. And that makes more sense. I mean, when you get into it.
Yeah.
What if he trademarked that? It was like Zach's Casual or something like
Zach's Quick Casual. Quick casual.
Zach's Casual. Yeah. I won't ask you to say that.
I don't know. He's no longer the CEO, so he's got a bunch of time on his hands. So
are they involved in other brands?
No. He's a revolutionary guy. He and I. So my first when Vanessa, my boss, brought me
Yeah.
down to Athens to interview. He was my first interview, and very rarely, if ever, is your very first interview with the company with the CEO.
Yeah.
And I walked into his office, and beautiful office, and he's an impeccable dresser, just 100% put together.
Yeah.
And he and I sat down, and it was probably one of the best conversations I've ever had with an executive.
Yeah.
It could have been more informal, more thought provoking, more personal. I mean, yeah, we like talked about my experience. We talked about what I'd done. He didn't have a copy of my resume, but he knew it.
Yeah.
And, he wanted to know about me and know about my family. And,
Yeah.
that's when I'm like, all right, this is where I want to be.
Yeah.
And because of like, if the guy at the top is like this, everybody else has, in my mind, had to follow suit. And that's what I found.
Yeah. That's a cool way to do it, because like you said, ordinarily the order is the opposite.
Yeah.
But that's a good way to not control, that's probably a bad way to put it, but to, reinforce or instill, what the founder, what the owner, what the person who's actually running.
Well, that's good. You got to him like as quick
nice.
as you did. Think about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm going to ask you the hard question here. So what's the transition over from having with Zach being the owner to Goldman Sachs?
So it's been different.
Okay.
I've worked with private equity before.
Okay.
So it's nothing that I am not accustomed to.
Right.
What I would say is the brand itself, it's been a wake up call is not the right word, but for a brand that was really a family environment for 30 years, that environment's still there, but not at the top.
Yeah.
And not certainly from an ownership standpoint, but I was just speaking with somebody today, and I said, the accountability meter went from 0 to 100 miles an hour overnight.
Yeah.
And I understand that, but it's not only the company, our franchisees have never been held accountable for anything. And
Right.
it's like, all right, well, you're going to miss your development timeline. That's okay. We'll figure something out.
Right.
And I mean, obviously by our sales and our profitability, it's worked, but it just doesn't work that way in the private equity arena.
Yeah.
But we have a new CEO now, Bernard Acoca. He came over from El Pollo Loco at the beginning of the year. I know that there was probably a lot of anticipation around, the first new management style at the top in 30 years. He's been fantastic.
Yeah.
Very, I'm sure he is drinking from a fire hose and then some, but he's, from what I can tell, he is very culture first, people first, transparency based, very, very knowledgeable in growth, but very focused on smart growth, which is good. It puts some guardrails around certainly what I'm doing, but it's a heck of a lot safer and smarter than somebody coming in and saying, hey, do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Which would be fun until it's not.
Yeah.
But
Until they start asking why you did all these things.
Exactly.
Here's the positive, right? I mean, if you can keep the culture, right, but influx the missing pieces that were there.
Yeah.
It's a recipe for serious success.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it really is.
Well, and so we've been a brand who never hired outside of Athens, Georgia until me.
Wow.
And so I was the brand's first remote employee. And
Wow.
and thank God for my boss, Vanessa Fox, and her saying, look, this is who I want to bring in. He's not moving and I don't need him to. And the leadership team agreeing with her. Because it's opened doors for us to hire design managers who have come from brands like RBI and Inspire.
Yeah.
Hire construction folks throughout the country. I have a real estate manager of Minneapolis, and we don't even have a restaurant in Minnesota.
Yeah.
But she's really good. So it's really, we kind of needed this period of transition to take us not all the way to the next level, but at least start to move us in the right direction.
So let me understand, what is it exactly you do? Do you work with the franchisees and helping them fight sites, or do you, what is that? I guess, what is your core function?
My core function is to basically design the strategy for our growth,
Okay.
and then manage a team and processes that assist franchisees in executing that growth strategy.
Got it.
Mm.
Wow. So you
And-
definitely have some franchise knowledge. There you go.
And I'm also, what I found is, we have our own franchise recruitment group, but what I've been able to do is leverage my relationships in
To sweet wheat.
damn sweet wheat.
Shit's good.
Getting all tongue tied. Yeah. Cheers.
All right.
Cheers to that.
Cheers, man.
It only took what, 40,
Mm.
yeah, whatever time it is.
We're not counting. Don't worry.
Yeah, no, that's cool.
So I've actually been able to leverage my relationships within commercial real estate and help, help us identify who potential new franchise groups might be. And so
Okay.
right on my way over here, I was on a call with our head of franchise recruitment and a brokerage group out of New York, and they were introducing us to a restaurant group out of Wichita.
Okay.
So they're huge multi-unit operators, and they don't have anything in QSR right now, and they love the chicken space. So
Yeah. So, you're talking about utilizing previous, relationships. What about any relationships you had with like any of like the big box, stuff or other brands that you worked with? Have you find your paths interjecting?
from a brokerage and development standpoint, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. We're trying to work with Hendon Properties out of Atlanta to do some deals in Memphis for our franchisee there.
Mhm.
I've known Charlie Hendon and his team for a long time. Brokerage, basically all of my relationships started with that job.
Yeah.
And so I've just built on that over time.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it really is like, one job leads to the next, those relationships lead to the next. And it's absolutely amazing how it works.
Yeah. Real estate has a funny way of doing that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's
She's years, right?
Yeah.
Your relationship and building that. Let me ask you a question. Supply chain, has that really hit Saxby's?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It, from everything from chicken
Yeah.
to packaging to
Wow.
the steel that we build our buildings with
Yeah.
to, I mean, you name it, it's been an issue. And so we brought a guy on board last year, Keith Anderkin. He was in supply chain with Arby's, I believe.
Yeah.
He actually grew up in Lexington. And he's been phenomenal. We're a brand that's never bought anything in bulk. We've never leveraged our size to buy kitchen equipment at 100 restaurants at a time.
wow.
And so he's bringing that kind of experience to the table, and it's paying off. I mean, it's a hard thing for everybody these days, and
It is.
it's nothing that anybody frankly could
No.
have ever thought about ahead of time.
Oh, you look at chicken prices. I mean, if you didn't buy a bunch of bulk before, I mean, it's caught up now. I mean, where are chicken prices right now? I mean, are they still through the roof? Are they coming back down, or do we know?
Prices are through the roof. Supply is through the floor.
Yeah.
But and it's funny, like through this job, I've learned more about chicken than I ever thought I would have.
Yeah.
And
Do you have a chicken farm yet?
not yet, but that may be a better way to make a dollar. But one thing that I've learned is that, Chick-fil-A has been able to weather a lot of this because they buy the entire bird and they use the entire bird. Whereas we are just buying, the wing or the tender, whatever that is.
Yeah.
So we're trying to figure out a way to, take the breast and do things with that, or take the leftovers from, however the tender is cut, and, maybe develop a popcorn chicken for kids.
Yeah.
It's things that I've never thought about ever.
Yeah.
That, I still continue to be educated on.
How much does it cost to build a Zaxby's right now?
And
I'm not talking about the real estate. I'm just talking about just construction.
All
costs.
in.
all in,
Like tables and chairs.
Yeah.
Kitchen
I
equipment.
mean, exclusive of the real estate, we're somewhere in the neighborhood of $1.8 million.
Okay. Wow. What was it about a year or two ago?
Well, it's tough to quantify that because frankly, we never track the data well enough.
Okay.
And so I could say that it's always been somewhere million, 6 million, 8. And what we're
Yeah.
building today is different than what we were building then. So
Right, that's true.
it's hard to do an apples and apples comparison, but we're seeing construction prices higher than ever. We've actually shrunk the size of our building.
Yeah.
We've redesigned our kitchen a number of times. We're really trying to gain efficiencies through that. We took our existing prototype, and we were, at the time that Vanessa and I joined the company, we were developing a new prototype, and we've actually taken those two, blended them together, and that's what we're building today. We are in development of a new prototype, which is kind of our go forward prototype. We're calling it the Farmhouse Americana. And that will be what we build in large part going forward, probably in 2023 and beyond. And it's all about efficiency. It's all about trying to squeeze as much product and as much throughput through the kitchen, through the drive-through, through the dining room as possible. I mean, we still have franchisees that want to build a 70 to 90 seat restaurant.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what's the average seats?
I mean, today, I think the average size of a dining room is probably 70 seats. And,
Wow.
and we're trying to scale that back to 50 or 60.
that's a big, quick casual. You think about it.
I mean, I walked into a 90 seat restaurant that opened in, I think it was in St. Augustine, and it was enormous. But in talking to the franchisee, he's like, look, man, Saturday, Sunday, this thing is packed.
Yeah.
And he knows his customer, which is awesome, because I don't know his customer.
Yeah.
But it's tough to see those come across. Like, you really want to, I mean, it tacks on a fair amount of square footage, when, we're still doing 74%, 76% of our business through the drive-through.
Wow. 76%.
Do you guys have an app, right? You guys are ordering through the app now?
We do. It's actually under redevelopment right now. And so we brought in a chief technology officer who subsequently lives in Louisville.
Okay.
He was a former, I believe he was with Papa John's. Maybe he's been instrumental in turning us around digitally.
Right.
And he's an awesome guy. And so we're redesigning the app, redesigning the company website, really trying to bring us up, from here to here. And I know this is not good for radio or podcast, but
From the bottom to the top.
from the bottom to the top.
Yeah, it's
And-
up, bottom to down.
right. but yeah, I mean, that's the future. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, you get rewards
order.
on your app. Yeah, you get,
Yeah.
you collect your points. You get your, next thing you know, you're getting free chicken.
Well, and that loyalty app, excuse me, is how we track our customer behavior.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a benefit to the customer, but it's a huge benefit to the company.
Yeah. I mean, it's all about data. Let's be realistic now,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's where we're all going
Yeah.
with everything.
And I'd be interested to know too, like, are you doing that because, just from a market perspective, restaurants have found that customers are lagging in adopting technology slower than they were hoping that they would? Or are you doing it more so for that, or just because what you already had, that it needed improvement?
I think we're actually seeing the inverse. I think that we have been slower to adopt technology than the customer has.
Interesting.
So, we need to catch up to where the customer is today.
Yeah. Yeah. I see all these IPOs out from these, like restaurant technology companies, and they're just saying, like, oh, the people are slow to adopt. And
No.
yeah, that's
I
interesting.
think-
But you know what that does, though? That speaks to your brand being a leader in the space and not like everyone else.
Yeah, I mean, I hate keeping going back to Chick-fil-A, but they've done a great job with their app and their loyalty program.
Yeah.
They may not be the gold standard, but they kind of have shown us the path that we need to go excuse me, go along.
Yeah, makes sense.
The thing, and just on a personal note, if I was going to app a quick casual or fast food, I don't know if I would actually use an app for that, because it's made so fast. Why would I want it to be cold when it gets me in the car? Like, if I'm on my app, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? And I'm 15 minutes away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't want it sitting there for 15 or 12 minutes before I get it. Do you
Yeah.
see what I'm saying?
Well, I guess if you are going to use the app and it says it's going to be ready in 15 minutes and the timing's perfect.
That's it. I guess it's all about timing on it.
Yeah. But you have to have an
Yes.
intelligent,
Right.
you have to have
That's where
data.
geofencing comes into play on
Well,
that.
yeah, there's that, and you have to have applications that exist in the store that provide those types of analytics that can be communicated to
Right.
consumers.
Well, and we're looking at further evolving our drive-through experience. We're looking to partner with a digital menu board company.
Yeah.
That basically menu boards are just vertical TVs, but where the juice is in the data behind it, because when you pull up to the drive-through, that menu board will basically backdoor into your loyalty app,
Mhm.
and it will tailor what's on the menu to what you have ordered in the past.
Yeah.
And it will actually suggest order parameters based on what you've ordered in the past.
That's all AI.
That's AI
It's-
technology.
It's
Yeah.
absolutely incredible.
Yeah. And how do
it-
they tie the person driving the car to that
The
face
cell phone.
recognition?
Cell phone.
So
Cell
all the geo
phone.
fencing.
Well, facial recognition is part of it,
Yeah.
but the majority of it is cell phone data.
See, that shit's got to catch up though, right? And it's expensive to get that kind of stuff.
It is.
But if you take your drive-through time from 1.5 minutes
right.
to 40 versus
Right.
industry leader 46, I mean,
Yeah, I mean, it's the potential for sales growth is enormous
yeah.
through that kind of thing. And not only sales growth, but just throughput.
Yeah.
I mean, if I pull up to the drive-through and the drive-through board knows who I am and can spit out, a customized menu based on what my kids and I have ordered in the past, and it can tell the person working the drive-through who I am and what I've ordered in the past, they know who I am. They know how they can upsell me.
Yeah.
Because they know maybe what I've bought in the past.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean,
I had back in my tech days, there was a guy, he was, I guess, a colleague of mine, and he was working with a group that was inventing AI for full service restaurants to see behavior as they walk into a restaurant. You could tell if the customer's experience is, what they like, the whole entire, just basically reading that. And the AI was taking that into consideration, whether or not they were going to order an app or if they would order a dessert or drinks, and I was like, man, that just doesn't make sense. But you think about machine learning and how it's adapted, it's probably more adaptive in the quick casual space than it probably would be in a full service space.
Well, yeah, because full service is more about the experience. Quick casual is more about getting what you want as quickly as possible, how you want as quickly as possible.
Well, I mean, it turns, do you want fries with that, into, would you like the same size fries you got last time?
What if they could do that at like
well, thanks, Bob.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. What if they turn that into I don't know, think about like normal places that you go to, right? Like you sit down at a bar or you walk in or something like that, at like a hotel bar, and it's like that you don't, because you want that personalized service, and so maybe it's a nice place and the bartender is a face you recognize, but they're aware that you're there. You sit down. I mean, the
fine dining especially, right? Because you're spending a shit ton of money to go in there and to have an experience and great food.
Yeah.
That's where that would come into play really heavily.
Yeah, that's where I'm trying to go with that question. Thank you.
Like if that waiter at Roost Chris knew what your order history has been, who you've been, who your guests have been in the past.
Yeah, that's the application and the clientele that would really appreciate that.
Yeah.
What you're paying for, right?
Right.
I mean, the shit's getting off the roof anyways with inflation,
Might as well get something for it.
Yeah. I mean, no joke. Now think about it though. I mean, have you guys done a menu like price increase, or is that based on the franchisees? How does that?
It's we haven't recommended that across the board. Some have, some haven't. We have recommendations.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's going to look like in the future, but the market's not going in the right direction to not warrant something like that.
Yeah.
And I really do think everybody else is. I mean, I look at when I got takeout at Mojitos a couple weeks ago. I mean, I was wondering, I couldn't remember how many people I ordered for based on the bill. I mean,
I mean, see, the independents, they do that. I mean, they have to increase it because they're not buying what like bulk like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, at the end of the day, but I mean, hell, over here at McDonald's over here, I mean, that's gone up $2.
Yeah.
And I'm not kidding. It has. It's like, Dylan, how much was it for like a combo meal? I mean, how much is that thing run? Like $9 now, $10? Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, how much is the salad over at Zaxby's right now? Is that around 12 probably?
Man,
I don't want to call you on the spot on that.
No,
but
I'm
saying,
honestly not sure.
yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, but I mean, you have to look. I mean, you can't, you gotta. Unfortunately, you gotta. Here's the thing, right? You want to pay somebody $15-$20 an hour. Well, they're gonna have to. The menu is gonna have to reflect that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just, it just is.
At the end of the day, people are in the business for business, right? And that means making money.
Right.
So, yeah,
Well,
it's
and
gotta
if
be
you're
good
gonna take that price, then you better be able to translate that into the same degree of service that you had
Yeah.
before. Like people aren't going to pay 3% extra, whatever it's
Yeah.
going to be, and still have lackluster service and product.
That's a good point that you make up though too, because prices are increasing and people are increasing prices, but then the labor force shortage, and so things are costing
Yeah.
more, and they have less people working it, and the quality is going down. And I think that has a big impact
I think it
on
does
these
too.
brands. So these brands, they're scrambling, and they're saying, okay, well, how do we counteract these things within the confinements of things that they can control?
Right.
It's a unprecedented time. Yeah.
I mean, think of it. You can't even grow a restaurant right now, not because you just don't have the money to do it, or you don't have the location to do it. You don't have the labor to do it.
Yeah.
That's hindering every restaurant owner out there, every restaurant group out there. It's not the location, it's its growth path. It's the labor issue. Who am I got to run it? You know what I mean?
And that's what I hear from a lot of our franchisees. Like, I would love to grow,
Yeah.
but I can't, because I can't spread myself to another restaurant because I'm already working in 4.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's interesting. Yeah. We're working with a group in Indiana, and the guy was saying, is like, yeah, I'll sell my one restaurant because I opened up another one, and one's, more profitable,
Yeah.
and I can't run 2 because he's in there from open to close 7 days a week or
Yeah.
6 days.
Do you
a
think
week
we'll get to a point where QSR is completely almost 1 or 2 people? It's all automated. I mean, how many shows have we been to over the past 15 years where you've seen the mechanical arm flip the burger over?
Yeah.
And
I don't.
and, you know, I mean, do we think we'll get to that point?
In just my opinion, I think people go out to eat for a certain part of like service, right? So I don't think 100% will get away from those things. I think we'll get as close to we possibly can, over the next 5-10 years. And I think some concepts they will be 100% automated, but there will be brands that eventually, we talked to the beginning, value proposition wise, their value proposition would be like, we have people in our stores.
Well, I think it's certainly, if that's ever going to happen, it's going to be back of house.
Yeah.
You've always got to have that person at the cash register, assuming there's still cash and assuming there's still registers.
Yeah. I mean, do you guys have
right.
kiosks? I never asked.
No,
you don't have. The
we have
kiosks.
not gone there, and that's honestly not something that, to my knowledge, we've even talked about, because it's that customer to employee, interaction that frankly, we do really well at. But yeah, I mean, back of house, I could see that happening.
Yeah.
In a lot of countries in Europe and stuff, it is all automated. Like when I was in New Zealand, Domino's had 1 person working in it. It took our order. They prepared the pizza, put it on this assembly line, literally. And then the pizza came off the end. They grabbed it, put it in a box, and handed us. 1 person was working there, and then delivery drivers who were in and out.
Interesting.
And all their McDonald's, everything else is all kiosk. You don't talk to anyone until you get your food.
Makes you want to cook at home.
Well, it's a lot quicker. Like, you don't wait. Like fast food in Europe, you order on your kiosk, and then you watch your number come up, and then you grab it. It's a lot less waiting. Like, you don't even wait to order.
Yeah.
That's how it is in like New York and Chicago, bigger cities, they have those kind of environments. You just walk into.
And maybe us talking, that's like our market talking, like if the 3 of us were sitting, somewhere else in a far more populated area, maybe the conversation would be different.
Oh, I think it totally would be.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we look at whatever we've talked about today. We look at it through the lens of, living in Louisville, Kentucky.
Yeah.
Or me working in Athens, Georgia.
Yeah.
Which, love it down there, but it makes Louisville seem like a metropolis. But I mean, it's just perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Well, I tell you what, man, this has been great.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it really has.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let me ask you this before I let you go.
Yeah.
All right. Any kind of words of, I guess, we look back in retrospect, right? And you say, I wish I would have done this. I wish I would have done that. Okay. Is there anything that maybe, along your path that you said, man, I wish I would have done this and not that. And, I would have done this a little bit differently. If somebody wants to get into either franchising or into corporate real estate, just something,
I wish I would have taken more risks.
Okay.
I was always brought up a very risk averse person,
Right.
and I've kind of gotten a little bit away from that, but I'm still fairly risk averse. But I think I would have, in the time that I had before I had a wife and family, when I could have really made those leaps and really found my niche. Not to say that it would have been any different than where I am today.
Yeah.
But I would have taken those risks when I could have. But I think today, find what you love to do and who embodies what that is, and go work for them. Like if you want to be senior director of real estate at Zaxby's, that's awesome. But if that position is not available, find one that is. Even if it's not at Zaxby's or wherever your target is. I never had the benefit of growing up, and certainly in college, of really knowing what I wanted to do. I've to say that I've fallen into my career is not accurate, but it wasn't done through any kind of strategy. But I think that, developing a strategy of where you are today and where you want to get to in X number of years, doing whatever that is, just map it out. I mean, it's funny because I have one of my former bosses. She's still one of my best friends, and she's a big scuba diver, and she always said, plan your dive and dive your plan. And it's like, it makes a lot of sense, because you can't figure out how you're going to get to from X to Y until you figure out what X looks like and what Y looks like. So it's, plan and then execute. However, whatever it takes.
Oh, that's good.
That's a very broad answer to a specific question, but
no, I mean, not really. It could be applied generally, but specifically if you have something already in the back of your mind. So I appreciate that.
No, but you think about business owners, you have to have a business plan. You got to have pro forma. You got to do all the right things to get in there. And you can number it to death, right? But I mean, like we learned today, right? You got to love what you're doing. You have passion for it. Take some risk, but have a plan and stick to the plan. And so many times folks, whenever they do this, they don't do that. They're missing one or two or three or even one or four, all four of them. Right. You know what I mean?
Well, sometimes, people don't know that they need to do that. Right. And so that's, conversations like this, you hope guides them. In that
Absolutely.
way.
Well, and to your point, probably the biggest thing I would say is do what you love.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't love what you're doing, go figure out what that is and go do it. Because you'll be infinitely more successful doing what you love for people who you love doing it for than you ever would be doing anything else.
Absolutely. I'm going to end on that. That's how that was freaking great.
Yeah.
Good deal.
Dropping knowledge.
Dropping knowledge.
Boom!
Woo! That sweet wheat. That sweet wheat's really good. Yes, sir.
Sponsored by Sweet Wheat.
Sponsored by Sweet Wheat. Don't drink and drive.
Don't drink and drive. I love it.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank
man.
you,
I
guys.
appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.